Hi everyone, I hope I'm audible. Yeah, I'm so sorry for the delay. There was some technical issue. I'll start the session now. So, before we start, I would like to clarify a few things. First is that this is a live session in which we will be doing the previous year's exercises, which are the exercises that were given after each week's course. We will not be doing this year's exercise. We will only be doing previous year exercise in this live session. And you are of course welcome to ask any doubts, whatever doubts you have, whatever questions you have. I will try to answer best by my capability. In case I will not be able to answer your question, or if I will not be very sure of my answer, I would go and work on it and then give you the right answer. Hello everyone, whoever has joined. So today we are doing the live session for Introduction to History of Architecture of India. The course instructor is Professor Pushkar Sohoni from IISER Pune, and I am the NPTEL TA for this course. I am Shreya Shukla and I am currently pursuing PhD from IIT Roorkee. Today we will be doing the week 1 assignment 1 for this course. So if you have gone through the course, even if you have not gone through the course or the lectures, so I recommend that please try to go through the lectures before joining this session. In that way you will be able to ask questions better, and I will also be able to we can interact better in that way. And yeah, so yeah, I would recommend that please go through the lectures, because that will really help you in understanding this course better, because the whole idea of this live session is to make the understanding better for whoever is learning the course. And another thing is that it's because this subject requires a lot of knowledge, and it has covered architectural history of India of 5,000 years in very few lectures. So there are a lot of details in these lectures, and of course it will be immensely helpful to you if you will be able to go through the lectures first before joining this session. Anyways, we will start with the session now. So what is the course objective of this course? So this Introduction to History of Architecture in India, it's a brief introduction to the history of 5,000 years of architecture in India. And the history of architecture in India has been subjected to different narratives of aspirations, polities, which is basically civil politics, and societies in the region. And right from the Indus Valley civilization to the modernism, architecture has defined different periods, it has defined people, it has defined regions across India. So this is what this course will try to achieve. Um, Syllabus for week 1 was early architecture, which included parts from Indus Valley civilization and the really very start of rock cut cave architecture in India, very early examples. Then Buddhist and early temple architecture, where we see about the different Buddhist architecture that prevailed during the Mauryan Empire, and then how early temple architecture derived from those small things. And then the idea of sacrificial altars and divine shelters in temples, and then the Great Temple, in which the course covered about the different temple styles in India, majorly focusing on Kutina and Latina. And then the 5th lecture was an overview of all these 4 lectures. So before I start, I would also like to tell you that I have turned the access to microphone off for everybody else. If you have any questions, kindly type it in the chat box. I will answer your questions after I'm done with the session. So whatever questions you have, keep typing in the chat box. After I'm done with the session, I will answer your questions accordingly. I'm turning the microphone off for everybody because it gets really disturbing, and then there is a lot of echo and it causes a lot of problem. So yeah, we'll start the session now. Assignment 1, previous year. So this is a 4-week course, and today we are doing the assignments of previous year from week 1. Clarifying again that these are previous year questions, these are not this year's question. We don't do this year's question in these live sessions. We only do previous year questions, just to help students understand how to answer these questions, and to just make learning easier and more comprehensive. So the two main types of temple superstructures are, uh, we have options: A. Latina and Kutina, B. Kutina and Visara, 3. Latina and Bhumija, and D. Kaling and Kutina. While all these types are temple superstructures in India, in Indian architecture, we have to answer which are the two main type of temple superstructures in Indian architecture. So the answer is Latina and Kutina. I will quickly tell you about the features of Latina temple and Kutina temple. So mainly, although the design, the style of temples varies across all the regions in India, it varies from west to east, from north to south completely, but there are still some commonalities that have been established, and then broadly, not exactly broadly, but the two main type of temple architecture that have been classified as Latina temple and Kutina temple. Latina temple is also called North Indian temple or Nagar temple. It is common from Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh onwards to the most of North India. That's why it's more prevalent in North India. That's why it's called North Indian temple also. So, what is a Latina temple comprised of? In a Latina temple, you have different multi-storied pavilions. You have different platforms, you have different pavilions which are multi-storied. And each of these pavilions, they represent a set of houses. Then after each set of these pavilions, there is an Uttarvedi. Uttarvedi is, you can say, it's a miniature, it's an edicule of an altar. Then we have Uttarvedi, which is a miniature version of the Vedi, which is at the bottom of Shikhara. So we have Vedi, the altar. Then we have the multi-storied pavilions, which constitute the Shikhara. Then we have Uttarvedi, the miniature version of an altar. Just a second. Miniature version of an altar, and then we have a neck called Riha, and then above that we have Amalaka, which is a ribbed solid dome kind of structure. It is a ribbed solid dome which is called Amalaka. So why is it called Latina? Is because these kind of temples have vertical bands, which we call Lata, and Lata means creeper. So these vertical bands kind of give the you can say inspiration, or the they look like creepers or the Lata, the vertical bands. That's why this type of temple is called Latina temple. And these vertical lines that are present in Latina temple, they make this temple kind of look compressed because of the presence of vertical lines. Although the picture I have added here over Latina temple, you can't see that belt or the Lata in this picture, because of course even Latina temples also, there can't just be one prototype which can be made, which is like can be made everywhere. But this is one example which I have added in the picture, but usually these Latina temples, they have Latas, and maybe in some picture in the next slides we will see, we might find something, and then I'll show you what the Lata is. Then we have Kutina temple. Kutina temple is also called South Indian temple. It's common from below Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh. Sorry, this is wrong. It is composed of a multi-storied palace made up of small hut edicules, and stories are actually marked as horizontal bands. So Latina temples are have more or less more the look of vertical bands, while the Kutina temples have more the look of horizontal bands. So what happens in Kutina temple is there are two small units which are called kutas, which is a representation of hut. So a square hut is called kuta, and a long hut or a rectangular hut is called a shala. So what they do in Kutina temple is, at each pavilion, at each layer, at each successive layer that we have different kutas and shalas, alternates of it or maybe a combination of it. So you can see small huts at each of these pavilions. And another major difference from Latina temple is that at the top of the Kutina temple you also have another kut or another hut. That's why it's called a Kutina temple, because it has a hut. So instead of a dome, instead of a Amalaka, we have another hut. So this is the basic difference between Latina temple and Latina temple and Kutina temple. And just a second. Yeah, so our answer is A, Latina and Kutina. Question number 2. Which of the following temple is not monolithic? So we have four options. Excuse me. We have four options: Kailash temple at Ellora, Arjun Rath at Mammalapuram, Shore temple at Mammalapuram, Cave 5 at Elephanta. So to be able to answer this question, first of all, we should be knowing facts, or we should be knowing how these four temples look like and what does the term monolithic mean here. So monolithic architecture, or what monolithic is, means mono, it is made out of two words, mono and lithic. Mono means single. So monolithic architecture is used as a term to describe buildings which are carved, cast or excavated from a single piece of material, mostly from rock. The most basic form of monolithic architecture is a rock cut building, such as monolithic churches of Ethiopia built by Zagwe dynasty, or Pancharathas in India. So basically, when a building is made out of one single piece, it is called monolithic building, or it is a representation of monolithic architecture. So when we say that which of the following temple is not monolithic, we are basically asking that out of these four examples, one is not monolithic, others are monolithic, which means that they are made out of one material, and usually that one material has been historically seen to be stone, which has, where huge stones or big stones have been carved into temples, or caves have been carved into. So yeah, now we will see what these four temples look like. So I have added the pictures of all the four temples. So first one is the Kailash temple at Ellora. Second is Arjun Rath at Mammalapuram. Third is Shore temple at Mammalapuram, and fourth is Cave 5 at Elephanta. Elephanta. So it's very evident from the names itself and also from the pictures itself that Kailash temple is carved out of rock in a cave, and the cave 5 itself says cave, so definitely these two are monolithic because they have been carved out of caves. Now we cannot really look at the other two examples, Arjun Rath and Shore temple at both at Mammalapuram, look at and say that which one of these is monolithic and which one is not. So that's why we need to have some kind of basic information about these places. So if you have gone through the lectures, or if you might have interest in it, or you might know about it, you might have visited this place. So Arjun Rath is very famous, and it's a temple which has been carved out of a single stone. So the picture you see on the top right hand corner, it's the picture of Arjun Rath at Mammalapuram. It's made out of rock. It's a rock cut, it's a stone cut temple. The whole temple has been carved out of one stone. So our answer will be Shore temple at Mammalapuram, because this is a temple which has assembly of different stones, and has not been carved out of one stone. So the question asks that which of the following is not monolithic. So the answer is Shore temple. Just give me a second. The day or time of live sessions, actually, we have been given limited slots from which we could choose. So today was aligning with my schedule, so I will not be able to change the day or time of it. That's why they keep the sessions late in the evening from 6 to 8, all the live sessions, so that mostly people are over their classes by 6. I don't think that will be possible, sorry. Vanish. Coming back to the presentation. Question number 3. The earliest excavated cave architecture in India dates to 1000 to 500 BCE, 300 to 200 BCE, 100 to 200 CE, 200 to 500 CE. So I don't know about you guys, but it has often happened with me that I get confused with various terms like BCE, CE, BC, and AD. So all these ways of writing the date have been used in different texts in different formats, and they tend to confuse a lot of people. So I would like to first clarify, and maybe this will help you out in future also, that what these terms exactly signify. So most of you might be aware of the original traditional way of writing these dates, BC and AD, in which BC meant before Christ and AD meant Anno Domini. So what that meant was that 0 was considered to be the date that Christ was born, and all the years before it were termed as before Christ or BC. So there is 1 0, and then you go from back BC. So the bigger the BC, for example, 200 BC was 200 years before Christ, 300 BC was 300 years before Christ, 400 BC was 400 years before Christ. And similarly, AD was from this 0 moving forward. 1 AD was Anno Domini. 1 AD means 100 years. 200 AD means 200 years after birth of Christ. So that's how the earlier system went by, which meant BC. There is a 0, then BC and AD. BC being before Christ, and AD being Anno Domini. So because this was a very Christian way of writing the definition, because it was signified from the birth of Christ, but although if the whole system was changed, then that would have created more ruckus, that that how can we just accept that, if there are a lot of religions in the world, there are people who do not believe in religion, so there has to be a secular term which did not include one specific religion's terminology. So because of which, two terms which are more secular have been used now. So BCE is before Common Era and CE is Common Era. So it's the same scale, it signifies the same dates, just the terms have been changed. BC, before Christ, has been changed to BCE, which is before Common Era, and AD, Anno Domini, which was after the birth of Christ, has been changed to Common Era. So the scale, the point of 0 is same. It's just that this is more secular or more inclusive terminology that has been used right now. So when we say 200 to 300 to 200 BC, we are meaning 200 to 300 years before that point 0 that we are considering now, and 100 and 200 CE means 100 or 200 years after the 0 that we are considering now. Yeah. So this is an image of Barabar Hills in Jahanabad district in Bihar. It is home to one of the world's oldest surviving caves, and it is a rare historical site today, and it has become an international tourist destination because it's a really rare historical site. These ancient rock cut chambers date back to 3rd century. They were not necessarily Buddhist. Date back to 3rd century BCE. 3rd century BCE means 300 years before the 0 scale. It is renowned as the place of origin of the Ajivika sect. Ajivika sect were people who were living out of the society, or you can say sometimes they were some kind of munis, if you understand that term. There are multiple caves with different kinds of openings in this in Barabar Hills. Rock cut architecture. This idea of rock cut architecture, it has been laid out in research that it seems to come from the western end of Asia through Achaemenid Empire, which was the Persian Empire, into India in Bihar. So through years, this rock cut architecture, the idea of rock cut architecture has made its way from Achaemenid Empire to India. So the oldest cave architecture, it's not necessarily this Barabar hills in Bihar are not necessarily Buddhist caves, but it has of course influenced a lot of Buddhist architecture in the coming years. So the oldest the oldest evidence we have of cave architecture in India is around 3rd century BCE. So when we go back to this, the answer was the earliest excavated earth architecture in India dates to. So our answer would be B, 300 to 200 BCE, because it says 3rd century BCE. So our answer is B, 300 to 200 BCE. Moving forward, question number 4. Buddhist architecture before 400 BCE comprised of stupas, statues of Buddha, both of the above or none of the above. So the question is specifically asking that Buddhist architecture in India before 400 BCE, what did it comprise of? So to be able to answer this question, first of all, we should be aware what are the different type parts of Buddhist architecture. Secondly, we should be aware when did Buddhist architecture start emerging in India too. So the Mauryans, the Mauryan Empire, the Gupta Empire, were responsible for patronizing Buddhism as under the Emperor Ashoka. So Mauryans were also responsible for patronizing Jainism under Mahavir, under Chandragupta Maurya, and they were also responsible for patronizing Buddhism as under Emperor Ashoka. They patronized architecture in the form of big cave complexes. Monastic orders stayed in these cave complexes, which means that monks used to live in these cave complexes through the rainy season. They also sponsored the construction of stupas all around the country, extending to Sri Lanka, Southeast Asia, and Afghanistan, where Mauryas had many kinds of contacts. And the Great Stupa at Sanchi is the oldest structure uh, from Buddhist architecture in India right now, and it was originally commissioned by the Emperor Ashok of the Mauryan Empire in the 3rd century BCE. So this again tells that it was started from 300 years before the we can say the neutral zero. So 300 years before that, the Great Stupa of Sachi, which is one of the oldest structures of Buddhist architecture in India, available in India right now. So because this question says that Buddhist architecture before 400 BCE, so our answer would be none of the above, because the oldest Buddhist architecture evidence that we have is of 300 or 250 BCE, which was done by Ashok in the Mauryan Empire. So our answer is D, none of the above. Question number 5. The earliest extant freestanding temple is at Sanchi, known as. So there is a freestanding temple. So Sanchi is quite famous for its stupa, but there is not just one stupa at Sanchi. It is a whole complex which has a lot of small buildings, small complexes, and then there is the main stupa, main Sanchi stupa. So there are a lot of, it's a whole complex. It has a lot of temples also. So the earliest freestanding temple at Sanchi is known as Temple 17 from the early 5th century CE, Temple 30 from the 8th century CE, Temple 64 from the 500 BCE, Viruksha temple from 200 CE. So to be able to answer this question, you just have to have knowing that which one was the earliest freestanding temple in India or at Sanchi. So the answer is actually Temple 17. I will just quickly tell you about Temple 17 so that you can understand it better. So constructed in the 5th century AD, Gupta temple, also known as the temple number 17, is situated on the southeast side of the great stupa of Sanchi. Most scholars agree that the temple was used for Buddhist worship. While temple building in Buddhism didn't gain popularity, many of the elements of this temple would go on to be incorporated in Hindu temple architecture. Temple number 17 is an early temple of the Gupta period, and it is an excellent example of simplicity and grandeur. This temple has a simple flat roofed sanctum or the sanctuary, you can say the cubicle, with a porch that has four pillars in the front. The ceiling of the sanctum is slightly higher than the roof of the portico or the hall. So you can see there is a sanctum, or there is a sanctuary, or there is a cubicle, and then we have a porch to it which is supported on four pillars. And you can see the ceiling or the roof of the sanctum is slightly higher than the porch. The interior and exterior of the temple are undecorated, but the pillars are carved. They are carved with inverted lotuses, and the capital is carved with small lions. The temple represents one of the earliest known examples of temple architecture in India, and it represents a Hindu temple in its most primordial form, much before great temples that will evolve out of this over the next 100 years. So it is considered as a primordial Hindu temple. Mostly this was built for Buddhist worship, but the style, the idea, this style of worshipping or this style of temple making didn't continue in Buddhism. It didn't gain popularity in Buddhism. However, it gained popularity in Hindu temple architecture. So this is a very primitive, you can say, prototype of typical Hindu temple architecture style, and it has been assumed, or it has been thought of, that uh, the great Indian temples that exist today and over that have been built over the years, they evolved from this small primordial form. So this is what is about temple 17. So the earliest extant freestanding temple is at Sanchi. It is known as temple 17 from the early 5th century CE. A Hindu temple is a shelter for divinity, a model of heaven, a place for cooking, a palace for the king. So in a lot of cultures, the kings were considered equal to gods and they were worshipped like that. But in Hindu culture, it was not like that. So it is definitely not a palace for cooking for the king, and it was not a place for cooking either. So and it's not a model of heaven also, because what is considered, so I'll just quickly tell you about the definition that has been told about Hindu temple. So a Hindu temple, mandir, devsthan, is a structure designed to bring Hindus and gods together through worship, sacrifice and devotion. It is thought of as the house of the god to whom it is dedicated. So in Hinduism, in temple culture of Hinduism, the temple is thought of as the house of the god, as a shelter of the god, and that place is dedicated to the god. The earliest temples started off as divine shelters. The earliest temple in Hindu temple architecture, they started off as divine shelters, and they were usually of the form of cubicles, sanctums on high platforms. So there used to be a high platform, then there used to be a sanctum, and then slowly with time, the idea that that divinity is in verticality, is in height. So a lot of higher shikhar were used to be made so that the top helps you reach to the god. That was the idea behind the tall shikharas in Hindu temple architecture. And this sanctum was like a cave. This sanctum had derived its idea from the cave. It was like a natural shelter, and it was also an altar. It could be a worship altar, and sometimes these temples have also been sacrificial altars also. In Eventually, these sanctums will form into big mansions in palaces for the gods and not simple shelter model along Ghat. So the earliest temples started off as divine shelters, and of course at that point they were taking their precedent from the Buddhist architecture style, which had a lot of models of huts or the kutta, you can say. So it started off the simple primitive Hindu temple architecture. They started off as model, simple model hut, but with time, as people started realizing that God should have grandeur and God should have a palace and not just a hut. So that's how the scale of these temples kept growing over the years. And rather than from the image of a small hut-like thing dedicated to God, it turned into a palace or a mansion kind of shelter dedicated to God. Be it hut or be it palace, it was a shelter dedicated to God. So our answer will be a Hindu temple is a shelter for divinity. Coming to question number 7. Buddhist viharas are places of community prayer, residential arrangements for monks, a necropolis, depictions of the Buddha. So vihara, this is a plan of one of the viharas at Ajanta. So this is vihara generally refers to a Buddhist monastery for Buddhist monks, and the concept is ancient, and in early Sanskrit and Pali texts the word vihara has been used to mean any arrangement of space or facilities for dwellings. The term evolved into an architectural concept wherein it refers to living quarters for monks with an open shared space or courtyard, particularly in Buddhism. The term is also found in Ajivika, Hindu and Jain monastic literature, usually referring to temporary refuge for wandering monks or nuns during the annual Indian monsoons. So vihara term was also found in Hindu, Jain and monastic literature, and it referred to temporary refuge for wandering monks or nuns during the annual Indian monsoons. However, this term has become prominent in Buddhist architecture now, where so the residential places of Buddhist monks in Buddhist monastery where the Buddhist monks live is called a vihara. Ancient Indian rock cut architecture, the vihara started from rock cut Indian architecture, which had a central hall with small cells connected to it, and sometimes the beds were also carved from the stone themselves. And some viharas used to have a shrine cell back at the center of the back wall containing stupa or a Buddha statue. So stupa in the earlier time and then Buddha statue in the later time. So sometimes there would be a central hall, there would be different cells or the rooms you can say of the monks, and at the back of the vihara there may or may not be a shrine where there might be a stupa or maybe the statue of Buddha. Typical large sites such as Ajanta caves, Aurangabad caves, Karli caves, Kanheri caves contain several viharas. Some included a chaitya or worship hall nearby. So our answer is 7B. Buddhist viharas are residential arrangements for monks. The Indus Valley civilization was known for brick architecture, gridiron planning of streets, planned drainage system with inspection chambers, all of the above. So talking about Indus Valley civilization, so in the map you can see the extent of the brown is where the Indus Valley civilization expanded from. Indus Valley civilization was a Bronze Age civilization in the northwestern region of South Asia, lasting from 3300 BCE to 1300 BCE, and in the mature form from 2600 BCE to 1900 BCE. Together with ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, it was one of the three early civilizations of the Near East and South Asia, and of the three, the most widespread. Its sites spanning an area from much of Pakistan to northern Afghanistan and northwestern India. The civilization flourished both in the alluvial plains of the Indus River. The cities of the ancient Indus were noted for their urban planning, big brick houses, elaborate drainage systems, water supply systems, cluster of large non-residential buildings, and techniques of handicraft and metallurgy. The Indus Valley is characterized by a uniformity of measures and standards also, and you can find the uniformity of measures and standards across very large areas. They used to construct big urban centers in bricks, and bricks were of uniform measurements. Most of their layouts were gridiron, which is to say that streets are laid at right angles to each other, And they also had very sophisticated systems of drainage and sewage in all the cities of the Indus. Here are a few of the images of Indus Valley civilization. You can see the picture on the right is drawn image or an animated image to depict what it could have been, and the picture on the right is the current what has been left of the civilization, because the civilization is no more, so it's mostly it has been discovered in archaeology. So I have added this picture on the right just to show that what it could have been, what it would have looked like if we could really see it, if it could really exist. So you can see the drainage systems in the Yemen, and you can see the bricks. So our answer is all of the above. Indus Valley civilization was known for its brick architecture, it was known for its gridiron planning, and it was also known for drainage systems with inspection chambers. Coming to question number 9. In Western India, particularly Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, a unique type of temple superstructure was the Kalinga, Shekhri, Bhumija, and Famsana. So the answer is Bhumija. So I will just talk about Bhumija and what categorize the Bhumija type of temple. So Bhumija is a type of Latina temple. So there are two types of Latina temple, and Bhumija and Shekhri. So Bhumija is a temple on a plinth with lots of projections in plan, a malika on top, and central bands are marked by elaborate carving on all sides. In between, there are different small stories with aedicules of the Shikhra. So aedicules means a miniature version of something. So just like we talked about the South Temple or the Kutina Temple, we talked about aedicules of huts, shalas and kutas. So they were miniature versions of huts, and both square hut and the rectangular hut, shalas and kutas. In this type of temple, in Bhumija temple, you have aedicules of smaller shikhras. So there is this main shikhra, and then in the carving, in the detailing, you have aedicules of smaller shikhras. You can see in this image, this image is actually Neelkantheshwara temple in Madhya Pradesh, and you can see that the smaller shikhras in the design. So this is the main feature of a Bhumija temple. So there used to be a mandapa in front of the main sanctuary or the Garbhagriha, and it was not necessary that the mandapa will have the same style of shikhra or the same style of roof, and it can be of any style. And you have horizontal bands which are marked by vertical latas. You can see very clearly that there are different latas going from top to bottom on the corners, and you see horizontal bands of different stories of different shikhras. Bhumija means being born off the ground, and these represent different bhumis or different grounds on which you have a multiplicity of shikhra. So it is called Bhumija because Bhumi means ground, and the temple looks like all these multi-stories, all these different stories are grounds themselves which have different shikhras. The Bhumija is primarily found in Western India, in southern Rajasthan, Western Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat and Maharashtra. So our answer is C, Bhumija. If you have gone through the exercises or you have gone through the assignments of week 1, I think the course and the assignment of week 1 and 2 have been released. So you have seen that there are two types of exercises that Professor Pushkar Suhani has added. One is the verbal exercises, which are these multiple choice questions. The other is the visual type of assignments, in which he has added pictures and you are supposed to identify which of the building or which of the architecture that is. So I have added 10 questions, previous year questions, which are verbal, which are these MCQs, these written questions. And then there are 10 more questions after this, which are visual questions. I have not been able to add the description for those questions, but I would explain it along with the question itself right now. And yeah, so this is the last question, 10th question for the for the verbal questions or for the MCQ questions of written type with no visuals. So 10th question, Mauryan Ashokan columns were inspired by large trees, ruins of Persepolis, or Mount Meru or Tower of Victory. So okay, I added a slide over here. It's missing right now, so I'll just quickly explain about it. So in Achaemenid Empire, or you can say the earlier Persian Empire, they had elaborate architecture. They had and the capital of the Achaemenid Empire at that time, or the earlier Persian Empire, was Persepolis, which is now very close to Shiraz, right now in Iran. So in Persepolis, the Greeks from the north of Achaemenid Empire, they moved forward through the whole Achaemenid Empire, and they destroyed most of the architecture and most of their culture, and they removed them completely from that place. So all these grand palaces that were there in Persepolis, they were all ruined. So what was left was the parts of the buildings that survived those attacks. So what was left were the things that were made out of stone. So the bases, the platform survived, and the columns survived. Everything else that was made out of wood and other materials, it didn't survive the attacks from the Greeks on the Achaemenid Empire. So what was left were just platforms and the columns. So the columns that were left were just freestanding columns with a capital, and usually the capitals of the Persepolis used to have some kind of animal figure on them. So this whole architecture, which I mentioned in the first few slides or first few questions also, that the cave architecture has come from Achaemenian architecture. So there are three parts in which we can see the influence of Achaemenian architecture on early Indian architecture. So just like the rock cut cave architecture made its way all the way to Bihar from old age Persia, a few of other things also made their way through it, and it happened because of the contacts and because of exploration and because of invasion and a lot of factors included. So the Ashoka pillar, especially the pillar that Ashoka has actually built in a lot of places as a symbol of victory, were heavily inspired from the ruins of Persepolis. If you will go through the lectures of Professor Suhani, you can see the images in that. I had added that image, and somehow I'm missing the slide. I don't know how. So I had added the image of both Ashokan columns and the Persepolis column. So there is a huge remarkable inspiration, or there is a huge likability in both of these columns, so which kind of associates that these columns were inspired from the ruins of Persepolis. So our answer is B, Persepolis. Now we will start with the visual questions. So there are two types of questions, like I mentioned, I'll mention again. Ones with images added to them, and ones with no images added to them. And I think your exam will comprise of both kinds of questions. You will have some questions with images attached to them, and you will be asked to identify those things, those images. Or you will have questions in which you will not have an attached images, and you will have to answer it based on your memory. So this image has been given, and that it is being asked that which identify this following image. So to be able to answer it, you will have to know what all the mentioned buildings look like, or you know. So another thing that I would like to tell you is that whatever buildings, whatever architecture has been mentioned in the NPTEL course. Only I have so far what I have observed, only those have been included in the questions. Nothing extra has been included. So make sure that you go through all the buildings mentioned in the NPTEL course. When you go through the windows, go through the lectures, make a list of all the buildings that are being mentioned, make a list of them, and then study about them later on, so that you will be able to answer these questions better in your exams. So this is actually Chaitya at Bhaja. So it is a hall which is around 17 to 18 meter long and 8 meters in width, and it is a really huge cave. It is one of the earliest surviving Chaitya halls, and it was constructed around 2nd century BCE. Uh, this is located in Maharashtra. It is a cluster of Buddhist caves, and yeah, these are a few of the facts that I know about these caves. So to be able to answer this, you just have to know what these buildings would look like. There's So in case if it is mentioned that look at this picture and identify the style, then I can elaborate how can you identify the style. But because it's just written clearly that tell which building it is, then you will have to have that knowledge to be able to answer these questions. Question number 12, identify the following. So there is this image, temple at Anwa, Kailashnath temple, Kanchipuram, Kandaria Mahadev temple, Khajuraho, or Sun temple, Konark. So if you have any many of you might know which temple it is, because it's a very famous temple. So Kandaria Mahadev temple means the great god of the cave. It is one of the largest and most ornamented Hindu temples in the temple group of Khajuraho. It is considered one of the best examples of temples preserved from the medieval period in India, and this is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This is actually Kandaria Mahadev temple in Khajuraho, and yeah, if you have gone through the lectures, you know which temple style this is. This is actually a Shikhara type of temple, of Latina temple. I have not explained Shikhara type because we didn't have any questions on that. So this is a Latina type of temple, and it's a Shikhara type. It's not Bhumija type, it's Shikhara type. So the difference between Bhumija and Shikhara is that Bhumija has different multi-levels which have aedicules, all the miniatures of Shikharas in them. While in Shikhara temples, in Shikheri temples, sorry, not Shikhara temples, Shikheri temples, we have different cascading Shikharas. So there is this main Shikhara with a dome on the top, and then there are cascading smaller Shikharas till it goes down to the diminish. So you can see that it is very evident in this style. So yeah, it's located in Khajuraho. It's called Kandaria Mahadev temple. It's Latina style temple, and it's a Shekhari Latina style temple. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it is one of the best preserved examples of temple architecture in India. Question number 13, identify the following: Sanchi Stupa, Delhi Stupa, Nagarjun Kund Stupa, Kanganhali Stupa. So again, to be able to answer these questions, you will just have to have the knowledge on that which of the buildings look like what. So this one is actually Sanchi Stupa, and it is the oldest form of stupa of Buddhist architecture that we have right now existing in India. And whole Sanchi town, it is located in Sanchi in Madhya Pradesh, it's near Bhopal, and the whole town is famous for this stupa itself, and it is one of the oldest stone architecture in India, and this stupa has been, I think, restored a lot of times, and it was built by Ashoka the Great during the Mauryan Empire in the 3rd century, 2nd or 3rd century around. And it has typical stupa features. There is a hemispherical dome, there is railings, there is one torana, there is one uh, top, and then one chhatri on the top. So yeah, this is Sanchi Stupa from Sanchi, built in 2nd BC by Ashoka of Mauryan Empire. Now I have already added this image, so you will be able to easily identify this one. So identify the following: Malabar caves, 3rd century BCE, Barabar caves, Ajanta caves, 5th century CE, Barabar caves, Barabar caves or Barabar caves, 3rd century BCE, Udaygiri caves, 2nd century BCE. So I have already shown this image. This is actually Barabar caves in 3rd century BCE. It's the oldest record of cave architecture in India, and this was a place where Ajivikas used to live, and this whole idea of rock cut architecture or cave architecture has come from Achaemenid Empire, has huge inspiration from there. Although their idea of in their culture, in Achaemenid culture, they used to build tombs inside the cave, but when the whole idea has traveled all the way to India, but in India it was given a more spiritual or more religious or more divine meaning. So earlier, the earliest record we have of the earliest cave architecture is Barabar Caves, which was used as a place for staying for rishis, munis, and Ajivika, and in Ajivika sect. Later, this kind of cave structure was used to for in Buddhist architecture as a place where to denote to Buddha. So they used to carve this whole thing, whole viharas or chaitya halls inside the cave, and then at the end of the chaitya halls there would be a stupa or a statue of Buddha. So yeah, this is Barabar caves in Bihar, in built in 3rd century BCE. Question number 15. Identify the following, and we have examples. Kailash Temple, Ellora, 8th century CE. Brihadeshwara Temple, Tanjore, 11th century CE. Meenakshi Temple, Madurai, 17th century CE. Shore Temple, Mahabalipuram, 6th century CE. So we talked about two things. We talked about two types of main temple architecture divided in India, the Latinas and Kutinas. So if you look at this image, you can see very clearly that it is a Kutina type. You can see small huts, kuts and shalas in the shikhara. You can see there are different levels, and each level has small edicules or miniature versions of shalas and kutas, and then on the top you have the bigger. So it is clear that it is a south temple, and it is a Kutina type of temple. It's a South Indian temple. But the examples that have been given here are all examples of South Indian temples. So you cannot just identify it based on the answer. So you have to know these famous temples, these famous places for this course, so that you can identify them. So this is Brihadeshwara temple in Tanjore, 11th century CE. It was built by Thanjai Periyar Koval. It is a Shiva Hindu temple in Chola architectural style, and it's located in Tanjore, Tamil Nadu right now. And it is one of the largest Hindu temples and a big example of Tamil architecture. And it's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And yeah, that's all I know. It was built in 11th century CE, and yeah. So the answer is B, Brihadeshwara Temple, Tanjore, 11th century CE. So there is this picture of Ashokan pillar added, one of the Ashokan pillar, and then you have been asked to identify the following picture. So it's a column at Persepolis, 4th century BCE, column from Sarnath, 3rd century BCE, column at Firoz Shah Kotla, 15th century CE, column at Lauria Nandangarh, 3rd century BCE. So this is actually column at Lauria Nandangarh, 3rd century BCE. Lauria Nandangarh is a small town in Champaran district of Bihar, and the main attraction in this city itself is this pillar, and it was found during the excavation, and it is a symbol of the glorious history of the Nandangarh. And you can see it has one complete lion. Usually we have seen different variations of Ashokan pillar. So this one has a whole lion sitting on the top, so you can categorize it as by that. There is a whole lion sitting on the in this pillar. So the answer is D. Question number 17. Identify the following. So this image has been given again, and you are asked to identify which one is. Is it a palace at Hampi, 15th century CE? Royal stables at Hampi, 15th century CE. Viruksha temple at Hampi, 15th century CE, and Sun temple at Konark, 10th century CE. So if anybody, this is very famous, so people might know that this is actually Sun temple, Konark, and it is located in Odisha, and this is remains of a huge temple. What you see is a mandapa. The structure that you see here is the mandapa, and behind it was the original Garbhagriha, which is not there anymore. So the Garbhagriha was supposed to have a bigger shikhara, and it was supposed to have the whole structure. In a few of the texts, in a few of the books, I think in the book by Percy Brown also, he has an image where he shows what it would have been like, the original shikhara, if it would have been there. So the structure that we see here is a part of the mandapa, and Sun Temple Konark is famously known as that it was built like a chariot, like a rath, and dedicated to the sun god, and it was built around 10th century CE, and yeah, that I think the most unique thing or the characteristic about this, which is not visible in this picture actually, is the huge chakras, chakras, the chariot, the wheel of the chariots that have been made in this temple, which actually give it a very unique look. So our answer is D, Sun Temple, Konark. Identify the following. This I have already shown you, so you will be able to identify it, that it's Temple 17 and Sachi. It is one of the oldest pre-modern examples of Hindu temple architecture, and it is one of the few temples present in the complex of Sanchi Stupa. It was built in 5th century CE, and it has a sanctum, a cubical sanctum, which has a porch supported on 4 pillars, and the roof of the sanctum is slightly higher than the porch, and the entire inside and outside of the whole building has no details except the pillars. Pillars are hugely carved with a lion capital and inverted lotus below the capital. So our answer is B, Temple 17, Sanchi, 5th CE. Then identify the following. So again, this image has been given, and you are asked to identify the temple. Vishnu Temple, Nachna, 5th century CE. Shore Temple, Mambalapuram, 6th century CE. Larkhan Temple, Ehole, 5th century CE. Arjun Rath, Mamallapuram 6th century CE. So I have already shown this picture once before. I don't know if you remember it or not. Um, this is actually Shore Temple, Mamallapuram, 6th century CE. It's a complex of temples and shrines that overlooks the shore of Bay of Bengal. It is located in Mahabalipuram, which is 60 kilometers south of Chennai in Tamil Nadu. And this is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site, if I'm not wrong. I'll check about it. And yeah, it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is one of the oldest structural stone temples of southern India. So usually when the whole system started of temples, uh, compared to rock cut temples, which I showed you, like Arjun Rath in Mahabalipuram, Mallapuram, Arjun Rath that I showed you, it was built cut out of a single stone, single rock. Built around the same time, this was a structural temple, which means that it's supported on columns and beams. It's a whole structural system, and rather than being carved out of one thing. So Shore Temple is one of the oldest structural temples in South India, whereas we have example of Arjun Rath in the same place around that same time, which is a rock cut temple around that same time. So our answer is Shore Temple, Mamallapuram or Mahabalipuram, 6th century CE. And now this picture has been given, which is actually a relief, and it's a picture of some kinds of reliefs on rock, and then you can see some cut architecture, and you have been asked to identify which of the following is it. Is it a large relief at Ellora, 7th century CE? Is it Jain Caves, Udaygiri, Odisha, 2nd century BC, Gupta Cave, Udaygiri, Madhya Pradesh, 5th century CE, or Descent of the Ganges or Ganga, or Arjun's Penance, Mamallapuram or Mahabalipuram? So it's actually Descent of the Ganges. It is locally called Arjun's Penance, and it is a monument at Mamallapuram, and legend says that it's a giant air rock relief, and it was carved onto monolithic rock boulders, and the legend depicted in this relief is the story of the descent of sacred river Ganga to earth from heavens, led by Bhagirath. So it is called Descent of the Ganges because the reliefs on this, these are two rocks, two boulders which have been carved with this relief. And it's called Descent of the Ganges because the story that has been depicted on these reliefs, on these rocks, is the story of Ganga coming down from heaven to earth. Ganga was brought to earth by Bhagirath. And the water of Ganga is believed to possess supernatural powers. We know Ganga is a holy river in Hinduism. So yeah, so the answer is B, Descent of the Ganga or Arjun's Penance, Mamallapuram. So yeah, these were the 20 questions for today. 10 verbal questions as in without visuals, and 10 questions with visuals, in which you were supposed to identify the image that has been given. The exams will have a combination of these questions. So now that we're done with the questions, we can start the question and answer session. So if you have any doubts, any questions, type it in the chat box. I will keep answering one by one. Yeah, so I answered Danish that the session timing will not be able to change because we have been given these times for late evening specifically so that people can attend the classes. It's from 6 to 8, and I had to select a schedule that suited my schedule, and I'm already taking 2 NPTEL courses, so I will not be able to adjust it. Sorry, Danish. And but however, if you're not able to attend this session, this session will be recorded. Yeah, the link will be same for the classes. So all these sessions, all these live sessions are recorded. It will be put up on YouTube, and you will be given the link via NPTEL. So you will be given the link to all the classes. This is recorded session and it will be uploaded on YouTube. So in case anybody is missing the session, you can always go back to YouTube and watch the video again. So you will be given the link to the YouTube by NPTEL in the coming week, I guess. One whole drive will be shared for you. And then Miss Purnima said that please show all the slides. You joined late. Yeah, I can show all the slides again. And just to let you know, these slides will also be available to you. So the video is recorded. It will be uploaded on YouTube. Anybody can access that. Secondly, this presentation that I'm showing, this is a presentation that I have made on the previous year questions. This will be also given to you. I'm supposed to add it in a public Google Drive, which the link to that Google Drive will also be given to you by NPTEL. So you will have access to this PPT and you will have access to the whole live session also. So don't need to worry about that. And yeah, it would be the same link for all the classes. This link has been given to you by NPTEL, and this would be the same link throughout all the classes. So if anybody has any kind of questions, please let me know. I will try to answer it best to my capacity. In case I will not be able to answer your question, I would read about it, I would learn more about it, and then I will answer it in the next session. No, I will not be telling any work to do. I am just going to do the live session. So you take the NPTEL course, you go through the lectures that are given by Professor Suhani. You're supposed to finish the assignments and then you will have an exam by the end of the session. These live sessions are just to help people out with the course. Some questions might be same and some questions are different, because the course content is huge, so there can be many questions. So I'm not sure if every year they give the same assignment, but yeah, of course some questions would definitely be same. So I'm not going to give any work or extra assignment or anything. This is just a live session to help people out. So that's why we just discussed previous year questions, that what kind of questions are there and how to actually remember them or how to answer them. So usually I just add a few facts about the questions or some details about the questions so that people understand about the question better. Yeah, so that is the case. And the assignments that I have shown you, the questions that I have shown you, similar kind of questions would be there in your this year's assignment also, Mr. John. So even this year you will have two sets of questions. First set will have 10 questions where you will have to pick the MCQs. Second set will have questions where you will have a picture and you will have to identify the building. So 10 questions each, 2 sets, quiz 1 and quiz 2 every week you will get, and it's a 4-week course, so for 4 weeks you will have to do this one assignment after each week. It's on your NPTEL course itself. Yeah, so after this session I will upload the video on YouTube and I will share this PPT with NPTEL, and then I think keep checking your email. You will get the email from NPTEL to access this in Google Drive. If you want to see, I can start. If you want, I can except Miss Purnima, if anybody else also wants me to go through the PPT again, I will not describe everything again. I will just show the questions and answers again if everybody else also wants it. Yeah, okay. I'll just quickly go through the PPT. I will not explain everything in detail again like I did, because I have to be able to answer your questions also. So I'll just so first uh, for everybody who has joined late or joined in the middle, I'll just quickly go through the PPT once. So this course, as I have mentioned, it's a brief history of 1,000 years of architecture of India specifically, and the history of architecture of India is a narrative based on different aspirations, polities, and societies of the region. So week 1 syllabus, we covered these points: early architecture, which covered Indus Valley civilization, Buddhist and early temple architecture, sacrificial altars and divine shelters, about the temples, and then the gate temples. So the first question was, the two main type of temple structures are. The answer to this is Latina and Kutina, and I quickly described about the features of Latina temple and Kutina temple. So because you have access to the, you will have access to the YouTube video, you can go and check it out, and you can read about it online. And of course, most importantly, you should go through the NPTEL lecture by Professor Sohoni, and you will understand it way much better. He has explained it really well in his lectures, so you can learn about it. So the two main types of temple superstructures classified in India are Latina and Kutina. Which one of the following temple is not monolithic? Monolithic means made out of one single thing, not one material but one single thing. So monolithic buildings or monolithic architecture is mostly seen to be out of rock cut or stone cut. So of all these four places, we saw that the Shore temple at Mamallapuram or Mahabalipuram is not a monolithic temple or monolithic architecture. The other three are monolithic architecture. Kailash temple at Ellora, of course we know Ellora and Ajanta both are famous for their rock cut architecture. So Kailash temple at Ellora and cave at Elephanta are both definitely rock cut architecture made out of one single rock. And the Arjun Rath and Mamallapuram is famous for being made to out of a single carved out of a single rock or a single stone. So the answer to this question was Shore temple of Mamallapuram. Third, the earliest excavated cave architecture in India dates to. So we talked about Barabar Hills in Bihar. This is the earliest caves that have been cave architecture has been found in India, and it dates back to 3rd century BCE. So our answer is 300 to 200 BCE. Then Buddhist architecture before 400 BCE comprised of stupas, statues of Buddha, both of the above or none of the above. So I talked a little about Buddhist architecture and how it was spread around the Indian subcontinent by Emperor Ashoka of modern empire. And also it was I mentioned that the Great Stupa at Sanchi is one of the oldest structures, and which was commissioned by Emperor Ashok of the modern empire in 3rd century BC. So the oldest structure we have in our presence is our oldest structures we have in India of Buddhist architecture are around 300 to 250 years before Common Era. So our answer is none of the above. So before 400 BCE, Buddhist architecture didn't exist in India as such. It flourished around the time of in between 2nd and 3rd century. 5. The earliest extant freestanding temple is at Sachi, and what is it known as? So it's called Temple 17. So it has been found to be one of the oldest existing temples in India. It represents one of the earliest known temples of India and a primordial form of great Hindu temples. So yeah, so the answer was Temple 17. A Hindu temple is a shelter for divinity, a model for heaven, a place for cooking, or a palace for the king. In Hinduism, the temple is considered as a dedication or a house of God. It's a shelter for God, and although with time the whole idea started with a small hut dedicated to God, and it turned into a whole mansion or a whole palace dedicated to God, but the meaning that it's a shelter for God or a house of God where you worship them has not changed. So a Hindu temple is a shelter for divinity. Buddhist viharas are places of community prayer, residential arrangements for monks, necropolis, depictions of the Buddha. So viharas are actually the residential complexes of monks, and usually the viharas have this typical style that there is a central, either a courtyard or a central hall, and then the cells are surrounded, and usually these cells, if it's built out in the caves, they have a carved out stone bed also, and sometimes at the back of these viharas there is a shrine dedicated to Buddha, whereas usually either a stupa or a statue of Buddha. So the answer is residential arrangement for monks. Then Indus Valley civilization was known for brick architecture, grid iron planning of streets, planned drainage systems with inspection chambers, or all of the above. So I described a few features about Indus Valley civilization, and our answer was all of the above. Indus Valley civilization was known for all of these features. It was famous for brick architecture, it was famous for grid iron planning, and of course we all very well know that we had planned drainage back in those times itself in the Indian subcontinent. Question number 9. In Western India, particularly Gujarat, Western Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, a unique type of temple superstructure was Kalinga, Shekhari, Bhumija or Vamsana. So, Latina temple are of two types, Bhumija and Shekhari. So, the answer is actually Bhumija temple. So, what happens in Bhumija temple? It's called a Bhumi. The name has come from Bhumi, which means ground or earth. It's called a Bhumija temple because there are different levels in the temple, different multi-levels in the Shikhara, and on each level it is being seen like it's another ground, each level, and all these ground have miniature versions of Shikharas. So if you can see in this image of this temple, you see that there are several Shikharas on each level. So, and each level is considered a different ground. That's why Bhumi, and that's why it's called Bhumija. And it's prevalent in western part of India, and so the answer is Bhumija. Then question number 10, Mauryan Ashokan columns were inspired by. So for some reason the slide is missing in this, I'll add it again. So the answer to this was actually B, the ruins of Persepolis, and I explained the whole thing verbally. I will quickly shortly tell you what happened. Was that Persepolis existed in Achaemenid Empire, or the, you can say, older Persian Empire, ancient Persian Empire, and Persepolis right now is very near to Shiraz, right now existing in Iran. So when the whole Achaemenid Empire was destroyed by Greeks, so there were just some ruins left of their palaces and mansions and their architecture. The only things that survived were which were made out of stone. Everything else which were made out of wood and other materials didn't survive the attacks. So these columns were left, and the foundations, or the plinths were left. So these columns, which had single standing columns, which with capitals, which with animals on the capitals and decorative capitals, that was only left. So the Mauryan Ashokan columns are heavily inspired by those columns which are left as a ruin in Persepolis. Then identify the following. So this is a Chaitya at Bhaja in Maharashtra. Then this temple is Kandariya Mahadev temple in Khajuraho. Then this is Sanchi Stupa in Sanchi, Madhya Pradesh. Then this is Barabar caves in Bihar. Then this is Brihadeshwara temple, Tanjore, in 11th century CE, one of the largest temples of that time. Then this column at Persepolis, column from Sarnath, column at Firuz Shah Kotla, and column at Loria Nandangarh. So Loria Nandangarh is a small town in Bihar again, and this column is at Kolamantalore and Nandangarh. So there is this whole pillar, and then there is a lion sitting on the pillar, so you can identify it by that specifically. Then this is Sun Temple, Konark in Odisha. Then this is again Temple 17, Sachi, one of the oldest temples we have in record. Then this is Shore Temple, Mamalapuram. It is one of the oldest examples of structural temples, which means that it was not carved out or made out of something. It was laid one by one. It is supported on beams and columns. It's a structural temple. And then last one again, this is the descent of the Ganges or Arjuna's penance. It is called descent of the Ganges because these two boulders or these two rocks have been carved, and they depict the story of Ganga being brought to earth from heaven by Bhagirath. So this is located in Mamlapuram. So this is descent of the Ganges. So yeah, I have gone through it quickly. If anybody has any more questions, we still have half an hour left. And okay, so I will upload this video today on YouTube, and then I would be giving that link to NPTEL. NPTEL would be sharing that with you very soon. NPTEL would very soon email you regarding the with the YouTube link and with the Google Drive. So you will have both the things. If anybody has any other questions, you can please ask. We have some time left. I think it would be if you can come to the live sessions after going through the lectures, it would be really good for you guys, and so that if you have any doubts, you can ask me the questions, and I will try my best to answer them. And if I will not be able to answer them, I would definitely read about it more and then give you the answer in the next session. So to be able to actually ask questions, you'll have to go through the lectures first, because I cannot cover the entire content of the lecture in this class, and I'm not even supposed to do that, because I'm just supposed to do the previous year questions and answer any doubts if you guys have. So if possible, try to go through the lectures before the class. I'll stay in the call for 10-15 minutes more. If anybody has any kind of doubts, please write your questions. I'll answer it. I'll stay in the call for 10-15 minutes more. If nobody has any doubts, we can end the session. If nobody has any doubts, we can end the session. Just let me know. If nobody has any doubts, we can end the session. Just let me know if you guys are okay with it, or if you have any doubts, just write it down. Okay, because nobody has any questions, I'll end the session now. Thank you all very much for joining. See you all in the next session.